My name is Matt Jenkins, and welcome to a Badger Sports Network exclusive, A Century of Badger Football. We really appreciate you guys tuning in, and as you've been seeing across all of social media and throughout this entire 2023 football season, we're right now in our 100th season of Beebe Badger football. So many memories have happened over these 100 years: conference championships, undefeated seasons, comeback victories, you name it. You've probably seen it inside Bro Irwin Stadium over the years. To help commemorate the 100th season of Badger football, we caught up with several former coaches and players who lived Badger football for all these years, talked about their memories, some coaching memories that they had, and what it meant to them to be a BB Badger. So sit back, relax as we take a stroll down memory lane with a century of Badger football.
Well, I graduated in '65, and I went to ASU at Jonesboro and junior college at Beebe. And I had an agri teacher in '70, and I coached one half of the year, and I came home and gonna milk cows, and Bill Hefner, who was principal, says, "Bill, I'll need you because I need a science teacher." And I said, "Well, I'll do it." And I got the job the next day and teaching science for 2 years. And Jim Bivens says, "Bill, I want to coach, but I can't pay you." So I coached senior high and junior high assistants. Then Tommy Marson left at 72 or 73, and he said, "Bill, I need a junior high coach." And Coach Finley was there and says, "Bill, I don't know. I'll do the basketball and you can do football." So I had the 7th, 8th, and 9th head coach and assistant in senior high, and that's the way I got started. And that's the deal, because Coach Bivens gets me into coaching. The year that we won 3 or 4, that's a good memory. But the year got 10-0, that's a good memory. But I don't know what to say, because they're all good at BB.
When did you coach here?
1970 to 2010.
1970?
Yes.
40 years you were here?
Yes.
That's unbelievable, Coach.
Yes.
That's a record that's just not found very often in today's times.
Junior high.
Well, still, you were here.
Senior high assistant.
Well, you were impacting lives in 1970.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you just a couple questions. Do you miss it?
Yes.
You understand how important you are to this community and this school?
I don't know, but they were important to me.
Well, I did not go here, but I can assure you, your reputation and your legacy is going to live forever with that building and just what you've done for these people in this community. And I think I speak for a lot of people.
Well, I was a sophomore. I guess it was about 1988, and Coach Loney was here my sophomore year, who went on to Fort Smith South Side, and then Coach Scott Embry took over, and as the head coach. Mike Tarkington was the defensive coordinator. And, we were competitive. We had just moved up. Back then it was four classifications, single A through 4A, and we had bumped from double A to triple A. We just barely got over the limit to be in double A. And we competed. We was about 500 both years. Most all games were really close. And I think my senior year we had 22 players. I think all 11 except one went both ways. And it was tough then. We still had the full 2-a-days and lifted some in between. But it was a different time. We've grown a lot here at Beebe, and we're got a lot more kids. But I still have a lot of good memories from those days. And every coach I ever had, I can't think of a bad coach I had back then. Well, I spent 2 years at Pangburn, 97, 98, came here the fall of 98, coached junior high football, and back then we did a little bit of everything. So it was junior high football, and then I did junior basketball and track, even helped with softball in the same year. Got a chance to move up. Coach Prock was here, Coach Larry Reeder, Coach Tony McCoy. I can still remember all those names like it was yesterday, but worked with them in the junior high staff and senior high staff, I guess up until about 2007. And then I'd spent a couple years at Searcy, football and basketball there. Then came back. Coach Shannon was here. And so I came back in 2010 and worked with Coach Shannon 3 years. So went from Coach Prock's spread offense, hash to hash with tackles sometime, to Coach Shannon's dead tee. And so I've got to experience both extremes of different offensive styles. God, player memories. As far as playing days, I can recall a few guys we had on the team. I can recall one, Brian Jolly, was a starting tackle for us and a defensive end. And gosh, he was, me playing quarterback, and even Chris Cope was a good receiver for us. He got some notoriety, and we would, but he never really got what he deserved. And he was such a key component to our team. I know he started as a true, as a sophomore. And, back then, when I came through, sophomores, if you started as a sophomore, you could play. And I know he started those 3 years. I believe he may have been valedictorian of our class as well. He's a pharmacist now. And so player memories, I think about him a lot. And, of course, all of them. But he stands out to me as being vital for our teams back then. As a coach, gosh, the one memory that comes to mind now, and I guess this will be I know Coach Shannon had a big comeback one year, but I remember with Coach Prock, we were down 28-0 to Marion at half. And, just wasn't promising at all. And we come out and we score, and I think we got a fumble, onside kick, and I think we ended up scoring on the last play of the game, if not with just a few seconds left. It was a touchdown pass. I think, it's hard to say. It may have been, we had one of the Lambs at quarterback, Wes. I want to say maybe Jared Mathis might have caught it, but anyway, I may have my people wrong there. But that win right there was huge. Because they had a good football team. For me, there was always a lot of pride, because obviously he coached here. And then the expectations for me was, I felt those expectations, even though he really didn't put any extra on me. And so my junior high coaches, Coach Pruitt, Coach Hill, those guys, he had coached them. And so I was now playing for those guys. And so, that was good for me. I know that I think Coach Hill played quarterback for him. And, so a lot of his expectations, they filter down to people that he coached. And so those expectations were still there. And so I may have wandered off on your question there. But as far as what it meant to me, it meant everything back then. We had football, we had basketball, and we had track. There wasn't, baseball we played in the summer. And so I went from one sport to the other. It wasn't as specialized then as it is now, where people maybe play one thing all year. But as far as expectations and what it meant for me, there never was any criticism about making a bad play or anything like that. It was more of, you're going to hustle, you're going to say yes sir, no sir, and when you cross the line, you're just going to get after it, and you're going to be a good teammate, and everything else can take care of itself.
I was a Beebe Badger, 1964 through 67. In 1966, I was a senior at Beebe, and going into my senior year in the fall, and Mr. Bro Irwin hired a new football coach. His name is Jim Bivens. He came in to Beebe as a young, energetic, young guy that you really liked. He was a guy with no nonsense, and he was a great disciplinarian, and he changed the culture at Beebe. My senior year, we started out with 35 players, and by the end of the year, we had 15 players on the team. We had a lot of guys that got sick, got hurt, and lots of them just quit. But if you finished the season, you were a true Badger that year. And he stayed here a number of years and did a great job. I think 66 season was probably the foundation of what he did here, and went on to win a lot of ball games. I think he had an undefeated season in the 70s. But Coach Bivens was a great football coach, a great man. He came from, I think he went to Lone Oak High School, and he went to Henderson State and played football and ran track there. So he brought a good culture here, a great culture to Beebe High School, and really enjoyed playing for him. He meant a lot to me. Matter of fact, he taught me a lot. One of the things that he taught me, I wanted to run track in college, so to get a scholarship in track. And Coach Bivens came to me one day and said, Bobby, he said, you need to start saying yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am. He said, that'll get you a lot further in life. And at that day, I started saying that, and it made a difference when college coaches came to talk to me and other people, and all through life. I remember that about Coach Bivens doing that. My fondest memory playing football at Beebe was on homecoming night. We hadn't had that great a season, but the guys really played hard. And on homecoming night, I was playing in the secondary, and I intercepted a pass and went 99 yards for a touchdown. And the next morning, I went to Conway and won my third state cross-country meet 3 years in a row. But Coach Bivens, I still remember him for what he did for us, for me, the football team, and what he did for Beebe High School. My senior year, when Coach Bivens came in, the football field was on Center Street years ago, where the maintenance buildings are now. But I can remember not only my senior year, but when I'd come to football games and watch junior high and senior high football games in the 60s, that cars could come in trucks. They'd come in and park in the north end zone, right close to the football, right behind the football field, right behind the goal post. And also the cars, they let the cars come in and park on the visitor side, right up close to the football field. And I remember that sometimes someone would be sitting in the car and they would turn their lights on if they thought an official made a bad call. So the officials had to talk to them about keeping their lights off. But I still remember that, and that was quite an experience. And you don't, You don't see that any other place where cars would park inside the football around the stadium. I was thought I could get a scholarship at the University of Arkansas to run track, and I wasn't going to play football my senior year. And Coach Bivens came and talked to me and said, Bobby, if you'll play, you can just play offense, you can play receiver. And I said, okay. So when I came out and started playing receiver, we started losing many players, so I started playing full-time defense, offense, special teams, everything. And I started to go talk to Coach Bivens about the middle of the season, about the contract we had, but I didn't have the nerve to go talk to him. So I went ahead and played offense, defense, and special teams that year. But I'm glad I did that. But Beebe is a great place to be. It's a great community, and I've enjoyed it. Matter of fact, I retired from my job after 34 years in Pulaski County Special School District at Jacksonville High School, being a coach, teacher, and a principal. And I came back to Beebe and lived just 2 or 3 blocks from the school. So I try to keep up with what's going on.
Coach, just start off with telling me kind of like your time here as a Badger when you were a player here in the early 80s and then moving on to when you became the head coach of the Badgers.
Well, back in the early 80s and stuff, my sophomore year, we jumped up to 3A. We'd been at 2A school. We jumped up to 3A, and we were playing teams like Morton and Stuttgart and Lone Oak and all these bigger schools. And, man, my sophomore and junior year, we were getting our heads beat in pretty good. But then my senior year, we had 20 seniors on our team, which is really unusual. It was a high number. And we dropped back down to 2A. And, we had high expectations going into that senior year. And but what a lot of people didn't realize was, we'd never won. We didn't win in junior high, and we'd never won in high school. So, we really didn't know how to win. But make a long story short, about the first half of the season, we would win one, lose one, win, lose one. And matter of fact, someone wrote in a newspaper article that I think after the 5th game, it said Beebe's probably the best 2 and 3 team in the state of Arkansas. We'd only won 2 and we'd lost 3. And we just lost to Oak Grove in our first conference game. And I can't remember what happened, but some way or another we finally clicked and we went on a winning streak and ended up winning the conference my senior year and then made it to the Final Four for only the second time in the history of the school. I believe they made it back when I was in junior high under Coach Shields in 78, 79, somewhere in there. And then we went to the semis and lost to Prescott 7-0. Very disappointing game because it was one of those games that we dominated everywhere but the scoreboard. We had more yards, held them to less. I think they may have only crossed the 50-yard line twice all night long, and one of them was a long pass that we got called for pass interference, and then they scored on the next play, and that was the difference in the game. So that kind of set the tone for me, being proud to be a Badger and stuff. Be the only second team in the history of the school to go to the Final Four and win a conference championship, and just truly enjoyed my time at Beebe as a football player and played for I thought still do great guys. Doug Shield in junior high, and then he leaves and Coach Billingsley comes in and bless his heart, he comes in when we move up to 3A and we just we didn't have the numbers or the talent really to compete in AAA and got our heads beat in, but he stuck with us and we stuck together. And then, like I said, our senior year, we turned it around and won the conference championship and went to the semifinals and came within about a half a yard of scoring against Prescott and going to the championship game for the first time in the history of the school.
That's awesome. And I can't imagine, I've heard all these stories from my dad who played with you. He graduated in '83, Robert Jenkins, but that's cool. And you, obviously, and we'll talk more about your coaching career here, but you were one of those few that got to go pretty much really close, and like you just mentioned, got really close to getting to that elusive state championship game.
Yeah, I can remember when I was in junior high, the teams that Beebe had when I was in junior high with, your dad being, I think his sophomore year, they went pretty far in the playoffs. And the year before that, maybe in the year they went to the semifinals. But I just remember them having, great big kids, like Robert Skinner and some of those other kids that I just looked up to and thought how big and massive they looked. And I was excited to be an offensive lineman and Coach Doug Shields and everything. And then we were excited about moving up, but to high school. But when word came out was going AAA, he leaves and goes to Boonville, and Coach Shields comes in there, and like I said, we just didn't have the numbers to compete in 3A, and at that time, Stuttgart and Morton seemed like they were playing each other every year for the conference championship, and the winner of that game would go on and win the state championship. So those 2 years were really tough. Matter of fact, the sophomore year, we won our very first game of the year, and then we tied the third game against Desark, and then we didn't even come close to winning another game that year, and ended up going, I guess it was 1-8-1, and man, it was a miserable year, and really made you question if you wanted to continue to play high school football and everything. Right. But we were all close as a group in a small school, and we all stuck together. Like I said, there was 20 of us, and just hung together and kept working and everything like that. It made it even sweeter when our senior year got here in the way it unfolded.
Absolutely. Let's transition away from your player, and then obviously years later you became the head coach here at Beebe. You learned under the great Mike Malham over at Cabot, and then you came here in 2007, if I've got that right, 2007?
That's correct.
2007, then all the way here through the 2017 football season. Coach, that's a long time. What were some of your memories here when you got to become the head coach of the Badgers?
Well, I being at Cabot had stayed close, still knew a lot of people in Beebe. My parents still lived in El Paso, and, both my brothers graduated from Beebe as well. And so I still had a lot of family and friends in Beebe and stuff. And that was always my goal when I got into coaching, is I wanted to come back and be the head coach at Beebe. And just lucky enough that we had great success at Cabot, won a state championship, played for a couple more and several conference championships. So, I'd had a great experience at Cabot, and when the job came open, I let it be known to everybody that I wanted the job. Didn't know if I had a chance to get it or not, but just applied and got lucky and got the job. Man, it was a dream come true. And that first year at Beebe, they'd been running the Texas Tech spread, had wide splits on the offensive line, and throwing the ball all over the place and everything. So my first thing I had to do when I got there was convince people that we would still throw the ball a little bit and everything, but we were going to run it, and that they needed to stick around, and lost a few kids along the way because they didn't want to be in that system. But a lot of those kids that first year stuck with it and believed in me and believed in our system and really took to it. And we ended up that first year, we had a great year. We finished third in the conference and made the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And they hadn't been in a long time. I can't remember exactly how many years it's been, but and unfortunately, the way it fell, we lost the nail biter to baseball that year. Last game of the year, they kicked the field goal with time expired to beat us, for us to finish third in the conference. So as our reward, we got to go to Greenwood and play Greenwood in the first round, which were the defending state champions. And,
and I think they had that kid named Tyler Wilson, if anybody knows who Tyler Wilson is.
They did, and that first that I never will forget it, that they come out on their first drive. We kicked off to them. They come out on that first drive, and man, bam, 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 they go 3 and out. We get the ball, and I thought, looky here, and we get it. We put together a drive, and we got fourth and about 2 yards, and about midfield, and we're going for it, and we run our favorite play, and unfortunately, our kid slips and falls down and is a yard short, and then it kind of like it woke them up, and Tyler Wilson commenced to show why he was going to be a great Razorback. He picked us apart the rest of the night. But our first year was a magical year. My first year as a head coach, and just the experience of going back to the playoffs and having the success we did that first year just kind of really set the tone for a great experience there at BB.
I think one of the other big years, and I was in high school when kind of in your heyday as the head coach here, and obviously I remember that year vividly. And I think it was 2007, I believe it was, or 2008. You had the gigantic comeback against Valonia. They were up, I think it was like 35-8 or something like that and came all the way back. I don't even think you allowed a Valonia score in the rest of that ball game. I remember that one, and then particularly, I kind of want to get your thoughts here, that 2014 or 2015 team that made it to the state semifinals with Jesse Crisco and all those guys.
Yeah, that was we really felt coming into 2014 that we had all the makings for a great team. I had just about every offensive lineman back from the year before, had most of our defensive linemen back, and then, of course, we had Tripp Smith back, who had rushed for right at 2,000 yards his sophomore year. So we felt really good coming into the year. And then, the bad luck struck us right from the get-go. We're up there lifting weights. I believe it was a Thursday before our first game against Greenbrier, and Tripp drops a weight on his hand and cuts the end of his finger off, and so we lose him for the opening game, and then the injury bug strikes us and everything. I think at one time, out of my 7 starting offensive linemen, about 5 of them missed time for this and that and everything. And so we ended up starting 0-5 that year, and it went from great expectations to gloom and doom. And but the credit to those kids, man, they hung in there and they kept working, and we could see ourselves getting better each and every week. And but we kind of dug ourselves a pretty deep hole that it was going to be tough just to make the playoffs, but we felt like if we could just get to the playoffs, we had a chance to make a run. And then I believe our first win that year came against Jacksonville at home, and had to come from behind to do that. And, we get Tripp back and got some other kids back, and things really starting to gel together. And then we, of course, had to play PA, and we played them at home. And, man, we're playing them right down to the wire. I mean, it's back and forth. They score, we score. And we have a humongous thunderstorm, and there's a big delay. And, man, we come out, and for whatever reason, we shoot ourselves in the foot on our next 2 drives and don't score, and they do score, and we end up losing. But the kids never gave up hope. They kept fighting, and we go into the Sylvan Hills week needing to win for a chance just to get in the playoffs. And we got lucky in the fact that McClellan, the team we'd lost to the very first conference game of the year, had played an ineligible player. And the week we played Sylvan Hills, the news broke that McClellan had to forfeit. So we gained the conference win like on Thursday of that week, and then we go play Sylvan Hills, who is 8-0 at the time. And they've got the big showdown with PA the next week for 2 undefeated teams. And our kids played lights out that night. And we upset Sylvan Hills at their place. And then, of course, they lose the next week to PA. So we ended up finishing second in the conference. And we get in the playoffs. And, of course, we played Middleton in the first round at home. And, man, it was probably the coldest night I've ever had coaching-wise. It was about 28 degrees at kickoff. And we jump out 21-0 and are really feeling good about things. And lo and behold, if Nelson doesn't actually come back and early in the third quarter or midway through the third quarter, they take the lead on us. And like I said, those kids, they just never quit, never gave up. And we found a way to win 49-48. And then the next week we go down and play Hot Springs. They had a really good running back and quarterback, and it was kind of, they got jumped up on us 14-0, and we come back and tied it, and then they jumped back up 14 more points on us, and we come back and tied it. And then late in the fourth quarter, we stopped them on a 4th and 1, get the ball about midfield, and we are able to drive down and score with about 30 seconds left on the game to win and go to the semifinals for only the 3rd time in school history. And then the next week we go over to win Thanksgiving weekend and play them, and kind of the same deal where they score, we score, and back and forth. And we'd said all week long, if we got the ball, we want the ball last with a chance to win it. We already had our 2-point play picked out when we scored, and we drove all the way down to their 23-yard line and got behind the chains a little bit and tried to throw a pass, and it got intercepted, and we ended up losing by 7. But that was a great year, and the thing that stands out the most to me about those kids is just how they faced so much adversity throughout the year with injuries and setbacks, but they never gave up, and they kept fighting until like I said, we made it to the Final Four.
It's cool just to sit here and listen to you talk about all these memories and how much time has passed, and you still remember just play after play and moment after moment throughout all these ball games. And I know this is going to be a loaded question and probably daggum near impossible for you to answer, but is there any players over your time, and you've coached a bunch of them, a bunch of guys I went to school with, some of my closest friends, and then even some former students when me and you started working together here at Beebe. Is there any players, those standout ones that really made it worthwhile for you to coach?
Well, that, like I said, that my first 2 years, that 2007 and 2008, those two, that junior and senior class in 2008, they really took me in and accepted me and believed in me. And Roger Glod, and, I can't name them all. I hate to name any of them because I don't want to leave anyone out. But those two groups right there really stand out in my mind for the way they accepted me and the way they adapted to me and my system and my assistant coaches and bought into us and really believed in us. And then, of course, by far that 2014 group, that overcame so much adversity throughout the year that could have threw up their hands and said, the heck with it, nothing's going our way, and quit at any point in time to start out 0-5, and then, like I said, end up going all the way to the Final Four. Those three groups at Beebe really stand out to me. Of course, I had some at Cabot and some at Crossett and everything, but overall, I'm just fortunate to have coached some really great kids over the years and been around some really great coaches and great administration, and it just made the whole time very, very enjoyable. Made my job easy and want to come to work every day.
Speaking of kind of making your job easy, I've got a couple more here for you, then we'll let you go. Every player and coach that we've talked to, and a lot of them have been kind of in your shoes, been a former player turned into a coach, and a lot of former players. Nearly every one of them had nothing but positive and great things to say about Jim Wooten and Coach Bill Pruitt. You got to work with both of those two, even got coached by under some of them as well. What do those two in particular kind of meant to your tenure here at Beebe?
Well, I'll start with Coach Pruitt. Coach Pruitt, when I came through, he wasn't coaching. He was just teaching ag-ri, but he was already a legend back then. And just to be around him and to hear his stories and the way he taught you and was patient with you and stuff. And then when I got the job at BD, I needed a 7th grade coach. And, I'd interviewed several people and nobody was a fit, couldn't work things out. And he was doing the radio at the time. And we were to sit around talking. I can't remember. It may have been they'd come up to do an interview or something with me. I can't remember. But I just asked him, Coach, what would it take to get you back out here just to coach my 7th grade and help me out? And he said he'd do it. And that was probably one of the best hires I ever made because he was so great. And not only from the standpoint that he handled the 7th grade and those young kids and got them excited about football, but also as someone I could lean on and talk to because he's been there for so long and had coached for so long. And then Coach Wooten has a very, very special place in my heart. I mean, the man is absolutely fantastic. But, when I got the job and stuff, Coach Jordan, AD, he, at the time we didn't know which coaches were staying and which ones were leaving. And he pulled me over to the side after I got the job and he said, look, if you can keep this guy, you need to keep him. He's well worth keeping around. And I didn't know him from Adam. Never really knew anything about him except for what people told me. So the day I sit down and talk with Coach Wooten and everything about staying on and everything, and of course I'm asking, about what he knows about football and what he's comfortable with coaching and stuff like that because, he was just a volunteer. And I told him, I said, I just have one rule, Coach. I said, if I'm going to keep you on as a volunteer, I need you to be here every day, not just here and there. I need you to be here every day. And then from that point on, we were inseparable. The man was always there for me. He was always there for the program. He was always there for the kids. Still the same way to this day. I can pick up the phone if I need something. And I'm sure there's lots and lots of people in BB Arkansas that feel the same way. But he's just a great man, great giving guy that is there to serve and help and do whatever it takes for him, for you or in the program. just outstanding man that I consider to be one of my best friends.
Throughout this whole interview, and we'll wrap it up here with this one, I can hear the passion in your voice. Obviously, coaching is in your blood. Football's been in your blood since probably you were just a young kid anyway. What did it mean to you? And we'll kind of breed just all together. When you were a player here and then turned into a coach here, what did it mean to you to have Beebe across your chest, whether it's as a football player or then on the sidelines wearing the headset as the head coach?
Well, it meant everything to me. Like I told you, I knew that I wanted to be the head coach at Beebe from the time I was in the 8th grade. We had to write a paper in our English class in 8th grade what we wanted to do when we grew up, and that's what I wrote my paper on. That's how I wanted to be the head coach at Beebe, and I wanted to come back and take them to their very first ever state championship. And unfortunately, we fell short of that, but it was definitely a dream come true. And the old saying that once you're a Badger, always a Badger is one of the truest statements that's ever been made as far as I'm concerned, because, I grew up and went to school there all 12 years and then I coached there for 12 years. So 24 years of my life was spent being a Badger, and that's something that will never quit. Even though I'm not there anymore, I'll always be a Badger.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Coach, thank you so much for your time, man, and hopefully here in the next few years we'll get you back up here and give you the proper honor and respect that you need, because obviously you're one of the pillars of this football program. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate it, and I think it's a great thing what you're doing here.
Well, I was real young. I was 5 years old when he retired from coaching. That was in 1978. I was in kindergarten, and my mom was a secretary, and so he had to. And then we had my brother Owen, so he had to find a way to make a little more money, and got into selling insurance. But he was here from 1967 to I think 78 football season. It was about 12 football seasons. And of course, over the years, he really didn't talk a lot about it at home. Of course, expectations at my house were really high. And he kind of left me alone. It was my journey, not his. Obviously the memories, it comes from other people more than it did from him. Just talking about practices and how he was, and back then, it was a day of toughness, like it was in a lot of places. And I know there was a 10-0. I know there's a 10-0 banner hanging in the field house, and people ask me occasionally, "Well, was your dad here?" I said, "Yeah." And we don't have a state championship though. How are we 10-0 and no state championship? I said, "Well, it is a long story. My dad never even told me a word about it, because I think it hurt him so bad that the way things developed, there was something with an ineligible player. We were able to move on, yet the AAA got involved and ruled us out. And if my memory serves me correctly, I don't think anybody played. And some of the older generation can probably tell it better than I can. I believe that the Beebe, our team, was out at the old, I think it was Anderson's restaurant. I want to say Thursday morning or Friday morning, eating breakfast, maybe the day of the game, and got the word that you couldn't play. So that's a big memory of mine. I've still got some newspaper articles at the house and things like that go back to that time there. But that's probably the biggest story from Beebe. I know he worked at Nashville a little bit, and I did my student teaching at Nashville. That's Nashville, Arkansas. I can't remember 100%. Maybe he came from Nashville to come to Beebe, but that's where he made his home. That's where we've all played. Me and my brother both played every year, and but I got a million stories I could talk about my father, and but other people can probably tell more about my dad than I could as far as a coaching standpoint. I could tell you a lot as a son, but he was a great father, and he was tough. And like any good leader, I think you love everybody, but there's got to be a little element of fear, and you got to have that with anything you do in coaching or being a leader.
it was the best thing ever. At that point in time, it was all we knew. It was all we wanted to be growing up. I grew up watching my brother and Josh Price and all those guys. And they won a conference championship back in '97. And so I grew up and got to be a part of them, the Tony Lockhart, all those guys, Nick Bradley. And so they were all in that same era, same group of guys. And so when I'm a little kid, it was the greatest thing in the world. So all I ever was waiting on was just to get to play for Beebe, and 7th grade hit. And it was just like the best thing ever to get to finally wear a Badger jersey. But I played from, let's see, it would have been the 04 season to the 06 season. It was the back end of Coach Prock's era. My junior year, we were pretty decent. Struggled my sophomore year, and my senior year, we went 500. We were average. But it was we got caught in the middle of transition, in the middle of, Coach Prock was kind of transitioning out. Everybody was, how it is, you're a coach, you're there for a while and people get tired of you. He was there for 20 years. So he was dealing with some of that. And so we were in that transition there, but it was still some of the best years of my life. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And, I love that town. I love that school, and I'll always be a Badger. There's so many, I think about the best times were honestly in the locker room. We had so much fun in the locker room, and I can't go into all the stuff, but we'd mess with Coach McCoy specifically when he was there, but we'd mess with the coaches, and we had so much fun in the locker room. And some of the best days were game days when we'd stay after, and we'd all wear. I hated wearing the stinking ties, but looking back on it, it was sharp. We'd all wear our ties, and we'd all be together in pep rallies, and
absolutely
we'd stay after, and we'd go eat together, and we'd kind of have fun and hang out before it was time to go eat. And then once we went to eat, it was time to get serious once we got back, and there wasn't any talking. But man, we had some of the best times together, just spending that time from the end of school until game time. Spending that time together was awesome. And because the coaches didn't want us talking, but we were talking, and we were doing it though. We were just sitting together. We were just being together, just hanging out, bonding. Back then, we didn't have all the phone junk that they've got now. I mean, we had the phones, but we didn't have smartphones. So it wasn't like we were sitting there scrolling social media. We were just hanging out and visiting. So it was pretty awesome. That was some good stuff. Game wise, best memory all the way through high school was we were down 28-0 to Marion. And we were down 28-0 at halftime. Marion had Jerry Franklin and Darcell Johnson and some studs. And we were down 28-0. We were going in at halftime. And I remember Coach Wooten, Jim Wooten, he volunteered with us at the time. He talked to us at halftime, and he was like, this would be the biggest comeback in BB history if you ever do it. And he started talking about the last comeback that had happened. And so we went out there and we scored right off the bat. We throw Jacob Bunny down the middle of the field, and we score quick. And we all just kind of like, holy smokes, that was easy. It was a lot easier in the first half. We were getting hammered, and their coaches had taken their headsets off. They thought they were about to just blow us out of the stadium. Yeah. And we came back and won the game on a last-second score through the 2-point conversion to win the game. We won it 38-35. And oh man, I'll never forget that night. That was Wes Lamb was running around the field waving a humongous Badger flag right in the middle of their group of people. That was a great night. That was like everything that, and not everybody I don't think felt the way I felt. Like those guys, when I was a kid, those guys were my heroes. My brother, because my brother was 8 years older than me, and he halfway raised me. And so he was my hero, and all his friends were my heroes, and the guys that played with him. And so, a lot of these guys, it was football, and it was great, and it meant a lot to them. But for me, it was like, I felt like that was like when I got to finally put on a Badger jersey, especially the high school uniforms, because I always thought they were so cool. When I finally got to put that on, it was like, man, this is everything I've worked for. This is the best thing ever. And so at that point in your life, things as you get older, having kids, getting married and all that it's obviously a lot better. But I mean, I played in college. I was a 3-year starter and a captain in college, and it meant less to me than playing for the Beebe Badgers.
That's
so
awesome.
I mean, it was the greatest. It was some of the best times. At that point in my life, it was the most important thing in the world.
Nearly every one of them talk about like the coaching influences they had doing that. You mentioned Coach Prock, and we couldn't even mention him. But like, what did he mean to you personally? A Jim Wooten, a Bill Pruitt. Maybe those three particularly, or maybe one that I haven't mentioned. Like, what did those coaches like mean to you? Obviously, playing football, helping you grow as a football player, going to play college football, but even as a man too.
Oh gosh, yeah, I could. Well, I'll just run through some of them.
Yeah.
Coach Bivens, Mark Bivens, he was with us. He was my 7th. So he came into BB and started coaching. He was my 7th grade coach, and that was his first year at BB. And he moved up with us all the way through. So when we went to 8th, he moved up to junior high. When we went to high school, he moved up. So we were really close to him. We felt like we had a good connection with him. And then Coach McCoy, he was something else. Coach McCoy, he hated physical contact or like anybody like getting in his bubble. And I would purposely try to get in his hula hoop at all times, like try to bother him. And he knew so much about football, was so smart on the defensive side of the ball, and just lived and breathed football. And then Coach Pruitt and Coach Hill. Coach Hill was our junior high head coach at the time. Coach Pruitt was calling offense.
Yeah.
Man, those guys made you tougher. Like I remember we lost when I was in junior high. My 9th grade year, we lost to Marion, and we lost by 40. They beat the brakes off of us. We went down there, and they beat our brains out. Friday, we come back, and Coach Pruitt and Coach Hill made us run 40-40s for every point we lost.
Woo.
They ran the dog crap out of us. But I'm so thankful for those guys, because when I got to college is a different animal. It's like boot camp. I mean, they break you down. And so I was mentally tough enough to make it, and I give a lot of that to those guys. And then Coach Hill was my O-line coach all the way through high school. He moved up with us. Me and him were really, really close. I love Coach Hill, and he did everything he could to try to help me and fight for me. I love Coach Hill. And then Coach Prock and me were really close too. Coach Prock and me, he was so different. I don't know if you remember Coach Prock, but he was a psychologist. So everything, and I'll tell you a story on that. Everything was just super analytical. He didn't really yell a lot, but when he did yell, you were like, oh crap, I better get my stuff together, because and you usually learn your lesson. But he would analyze things and talk about things and was so calm. He kind of made you think in a different way a little bit. And so, and then I always felt like he really cared about me. And I know he did. And so we kept in touch when I was in college and all that. All those guys that we had going through, really, I felt like we had a lot of guys that cared about us. And so, and they'd been there a long time, and they were invested in the program. Coach Prock's story. One day we're sitting in the huddle in practice, and he calls, and I've got my thumb taped. I had like sprained my thumb or something, and it was hurting me. So I was told Keith Shireman, who was also a huge influence on us, he was our trainer. I told Keith to tape it, and I was playing center. Well, my thumb went numb when it got taped, and I couldn't feel it. So when I was trying to snap the ball, it was just all over the place. I couldn't grip it. And I was like, somebody get this dadgum tape off me. I can't feel my thumb. And Coach Prock just stops in the huddle and says, can you really feel your thumbs? Or are they just there subconsciously? And everyone in the huddle, including Coach Hill, starts moving their thumbs around and looking. And we're all like, yeah, we can feel them. And he's like, just a thought. I mean, that was like the weirdest interaction in a huddle. Yeah. And it was so him. It was just, and I think about that kind of stuff. Or I'd see people drop a ball, and he'd say, what was going on in your mind when you dropped that football? Like, no one knows.
Something you don't think about right at in that moment.
Yeah. But anyway, he was just so out of the box thinking. But I think that led to a lot of wins at BB, his out of the box thinking, because we were a cut above everybody else. And as far as schematically, we were a step ahead. If you look at the things we were doing in the 90s, everybody was running the power eye and the wishbone, and we're running pro style offense, outside zone, throwing with Josh Price. I mean, we're doing stuff that nobody else is doing. 2000s, people are evolving into more of the pro style. He evolves into wide open 7-foot splits, throwing it every down spread.
Yeah.
It's just, I feel like he was always
a step ahead.
Yeah, he's so smart.
Tripp, why don't you just start off with telling me kind of a little bit about your playing career here when you played for the Badgers?
All right. Well, when I was there, we ran the dead tee offense. Some people would call that, like a boring, just run it almost every play offense, but that's what we did. It's meant to kind of confuse the defense because you'd never know really where the ball is. And I was the fullback there, so I was kind of like the middle running back. I usually got the ball 20 to 30 times a game. We did make the playoffs every year I was in high school, which was a plus. My junior year, we did make the semifinals, and that was kind of our big year. Kind of came down to the wire against Wynn in that semifinal game, so everyone was super excited about that year. I did, like some things about it. I broke the school record for rushing yards my senior year that year. I do remember that game because we took a bunch of pictures. And I don't know, we had my friend Joe with me. My junior and senior year, we kind of called each other the Thunder and Lightning because he was the fast sweeper kind of back, and I was the kind of straight up and down fullback, run it down your throat kind of guy. So
talk to me a little. Talk to me a little bit about. I didn't mean to interrupt. Talk to me a little bit about that 2014 team because Coach Shannon had a lot of good things to say about that team and how much adversity that you guys had to go through that year. And he mentioned your preseason injury and had to overcome that. And just kind of talk to me about that whole 2014 year because it started off, I think he said you'll start out 0-4 or 0-5 or something like that, and was able to rebound pretty much all the way to kind of that expectation that y'all had that year that you probably could have maybe not a state championship team, but darn sure could have gotten there.
Yeah, that was wild. I think it was the day we were going to have a red and white scrimmage the week before the season started. We were in the weight room, and me and another teammate were rotating on the incline press, and I kind of set my dumbbells on top of his, and my finger got stuck in between the two and smashed part of my finger off.
Oh man!
And so they stopped the buses. It was right around school was ending, so they stopped the buses and everything so my mom could rush me out, try to get me to the hospital. And they were able to sew part of it back on, but they told me I couldn't play for a few weeks. So I missed the entire pre-conference game. So the first 3 games of the year I missed. That was against Greenbrier, Lone Oak, and Bologna. And we did end up going 0-3 in those games. And my first game back was McClellan, our first conference game. And we did. I remember my first play back. It was like a 20 or 30 yard run, and I was getting caught from behind, and I just wanted to hit somebody. So I hit him before we went out of bounds. It was a while before I was able to play. We did end up losing that game actually, but then a few weeks later, come to find out they had played an ineligible player, so they gave us the win for it.
Yeah.
We lost in overtime in that game, I think. And then we got on a hot streak after that game. Won 7 in a row. We ended up winning out. I remember we played Sylvan Hills the second to last game of the year, and they were 8-0 going into that game. And it was away. It was at Sylvan Hills. We ended up winning 41-38 or something, some close game. And that was the funnest game of the year I think we had because we were not expected at all to be even in that game, and we ended up pulling it out. The first playoff game we played against Nettleton, and we got up to a hot start against Nettleton, 21-0, and then they came storming back, and it was kind of a back and forth game, and we ended up winning 49-48 on a last second touchdown, which was super exciting because that was a home playoff game. Everyone was hoping we'd actually pull that one off. And then we played the South champions that year, which was Hot Springs, at Hot Springs. And that one, we actually fumbled on the opening kickoff. They got up 14-0. So it wasn't looking too good at the beginning, but we came and pulled it out like 28-21. It was super fun. Yeah, super quick because both of the teams were running teams. So we were done before the other games that week were even at the third quarter. And then that last game was against Wynn. And, man, Wynn had some big linebackers, I can tell you that. They hit pretty hard. And we came down to the last, it was like a minute to go. We had the ball down by a touchdown. And we got down to the 30-yard line, their 30-yard line, and just couldn't get it. Couldn't get in the end zone. I lost the game like that. So it was a tough loss to swallow. But we had a great senior class that year. Great offensive line.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that like you're one of those few teams that were able to get there. I mean, they had the conference championship or undefeated conference champion in the 70s. Coach Shannon talked about I think it was a conference championship in his years. You're one of those. I mean, it's got to be cool for you to be kind of a part of that team that not very many Badger teams have gotten to that far in the state playoffs, and y'all were just like you said, it's just a couple plays away from maybe even making it to War Memorial Stadium.
There was a no better feeling than practicing on Thanksgiving week when everyone was at home eating Thanksgiving dinner. We were on the practice field, and you would think that would be a negative, but it was just an exciting feeling being out there. It's a little cold. It's perfect fall weather for football, and we're one of the few teams in the state practicing. So it was a fun time. It was. That's
really cool. It's really cool. Talk to me a little bit about Coach Shannon. What did that man mean to you? And just like as a football coach, as a friend, as a mentor, how can you encapsulate what Coach John Shannon meant to you?
Oh man, Coach Shannon was everything for my football career. He was kind of a grind it down. Hard work is what his motto was. He was just like, as long as we work harder than the next team, we're going to win the game. Man, he coming in, he was this head coach from, as soon as I got up to school up there, even in junior high and stuff. He came and watched the practices occasionally, and that's where I got to know him. I remember going into my sophomore year, we were actually going to play in high school, actually play for him. He kind of told us that the fullback position was open, so it was kind of like who's going to win the competition for it. And he kind of just took a personal touch to that fullback position, kind of out there grinding out some practices, some technique and stuff of what would make that position successful. And then that's what I ended up doing, is winning that fullback position. He was a great mentor. He was just always excited. We had this senior night at his house one year where he invited a bunch of people out there, and we had like a cookout at his house. And that was just I feel like a lot of head coaches don't do that. We get to eat out and enjoy each other's company outside of football for one.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know if I could ask any of your teammates and pretty much anyone that played for him, I mean, they would probably echo the same thing. Just a very hard-nosed, hard-working guy. But Tripp, when he came down to it, if you were in the foxhole, he'd be in the foxhole with you.
I agree. Yes, sir. He even wrote some letters of recommendation for me for going into college and stuff. That's
awesome.
He's a great guy. My entire team loved him. So.
We'll wrap it up here with this, Tripp. Obviously, your whole playing career, you're the rushing leader for Badger football. What did it mean to you? And we'll end it with this. What did it mean to you to wear Beebe across your chest, to play for this team, to play for this community? What did it mean to you?
Everything. I mean, I think I enjoyed it more even the days of games at the high school. Everyone was super excited. We wore button-up shirts and ties walking around, and everyone was just super excited about the game. It was just like Coach Shannon wanted us to dress the part and act the part, so you had to be on your best behavior. But it meant everything for those pep rallies and stuff. Everyone's just like ready for BB football, and I wanted to, be one of the people out there showing out for BB. It was a great feeling, honestly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know it, like I could tell how much it meant to you, and I know every like future running back, and obviously we've kind of moved away from the dead team more back to that multiple offense. But I know any running back that puts on a Badger uniform here, whether it's now or in the next 10, 15 years, are always going to remember the name Trip Smith, because you're one of the greats, my friend. I know that.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Awesome. Cool.
Well, I started my season at Badger in 1967 as a seventh grade, beginning of the seventh grade year, and then I ended up in 1973 at the end of my senior year. It was something real special to me, and our senior year we had 12 seniors, and we weren't predicted to do very good our senior year. Matter of fact, so people kind of wrote us off, but all 12 of us were pretty much the same size. We weren't big, and we were pretty quick, but it was just heavy size-wise. We weren't big either. I think Thomas Stivers was the heaviest one at 182 pounds, and our line was not that big. I was center at 145, so you know how that is, but we pulled together as a senior group, and kind of made a commitment, I think, the first of the year, or at least I believe that's what we all did.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of good juniors and sophomores that helped us get there. Without them, we wouldn't have made it. And that was also the first year the band marched in our senior year in our homecoming game when we played Augusta. And there's lots of things that bring out relationships and stuff with kids, people I mean, it's just going to be a lifetime. Every time I see them, they make a difference in my life. They've made a difference in my life. But I thank God more than anything else, being a part of them and them being a part of me, because they just made a big difference in my life. Man, there's a lot of them. But one play that I got recognized on, or was lucky enough to be on, we were playing Augusta at home, and it was our homecoming, and they were undefeated and we were undefeated, but they jumped out ahead of us 13-0, I think, the first 5 minutes of the game. And then after that, the score ended up being 24-13. So we got together, and the team got together and played hard, and we ended up winning it. But Roger, we decided to do it. We were ahead, and I think, and then Coach Bivens decided to do an onside kick, and I was on the kickoff team, and he kicked it onside. That we surprised them because they weren't expecting it, and it went off Tanya Webb's hand. He's about a 6'5". He was tall and had long reach. Well, he just touched the ball, and I just happened to be in the right spot at the right time, and I jumped on it, and we got the ball, and it just kind of sealed the game for us. It wasn't just the team; it was our parents that support us. It was unreal. The parents of my teammates that I've met, that I went to their houses before games and stuff, spent time with, my mom and dad, they supported us. I can tell you right now, they made a big difference in what our senior year made as far as football stuff. They pushed us, they supported us, they were at the games, and just like everybody else's parents do the same thing. I understand that. But in that year, it just made a big difference to us because we weren't expected to go where, but we did. And that was without them, we wouldn't have made it. I guarantee you. Without God being a part first, and then the rest of it, our parents and the family and the school, it's all Beebe. It's all Badger. I mean, when you group it all together, it takes everybody.
Coach, why don't you just start off with telling me kind of about your career here as a Badger, when you first got here, and kind of your tenure as the head coach here at Beebe.
Well, Matt, I got there in '93, and it was kind of a weird deal. I really got hired just a few weeks before the season, so that first year, it was kind of a whirlwind. I was unloading. I was trying to move in, and 2 days were starting the next weekend, so it was an unusual year. that first year, we were close in a bunch of games. It was a learning process for me. Looking back on it, I was probably 36 years old or whatever, and had some really good kids. Kids worked hard. It was a really good year that built some foundation. We got close, and then kind of got on a little run. We had a good run of athletes for the next few years, and things got real exciting there. I really enjoyed my time at Beebe and had some outstanding players while I was there, and just had some incredible games to start off. At I guess in '94 there was some exciting games, and some things just started happening. And again, it all comes down to having a good run of kids, and the community was always so supportive in Beebe, and I picture that place just packed almost every game.
Yeah.
And those are just real fond memories for me. I don't know if that's exactly what you wanted to hear, but it was a good run. I was there for 14 years, which is a pretty good cycle for a coach. And then it was time for somebody else to come in.
One of the things when we were talking with Drake Widener and a bunch of those guys that you coached under, they talked about your innovativeness, and if that's a word, but kind of the outside the box thinking that you did. I mean, a lot of teams at that time in the early 90s and heading into the late 90s, early 2000s was still I formation, run the football, kind of that wing tee, dead tee, if you will. And then you brought in kind of a different way of doing things and going kind of more the spread offense, spreading teams out and finding easy throws for like the Lamb brothers to throw the football and all your other quarterbacks that you had. What kind of led to that, like the innovation that you kind of brought in here to Beebe during your time?
Well, my overall philosophy has always been trying to build around what you've got, your talent. I mean, and so, I always just try to keep an open mind is what I'm trying to say. So I would always just try to build around the talent that we had.
Right.
The first year, it didn't go very well. I tried a couple of different things. The second year, we went to a different offense with more and we had good running backs and good grief. I'm thinking back, that year we had Jeremy Kegabine, had Benny Pickens and Tony Lockhart in the backfield, and all of them were exceptional. And DJ Jones at quarterback, and had a good offensive line. And we ran the ball mainly, threw a little bit, and did some things. Then after that, we had a quarterback, had Josh Price, that came in. And he was, I think, the second player in the state of Arkansas to pass for over 2,000 yards. And so, I mean, he went on and was a great quarterback at Arkansas Tech. I mean, and so you've just got talent like that you've kind of got to highlight, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hiding them somewhere. And then you got Tony Lockhart with his 3 years of, and his big play potential and just an incredible player. And so you've got to get him the ball out in open space, not get him the ball into a lot of people. That was kind of my thinking.
Right.
And so I don't know if I'm answering your question. I would just try to keep an open mind,
absolutely.
Try to build around the talent that we had. And sometimes we opened it up with Josh Price, and at the time, it's not open up for what people are doing now, but at the time, passing for over 2,000 yards was kind of a deal.
Yeah.
In the 90s, and then we had some good running backs and hard-nosed kids that came through after a while. We went to the dead tee. People probably don't remember that for a few years. Because we had Bryce Hall that was just a hard-running fullback, and he was, a really good player. And we ran that for a little bit and did okay with that. And then we turned around and opened it wide open again with other quarterbacks like Jeremy Lindsey and Wayne Lockhart at quarterback, and had some good receivers and just spread it out and tried to get people the ball in space. So I don't know if I answered your question. We just tried to build around what we had. When you're a high school coach, you're not recruiting, you're playing with what's coming out for football.
Absolutely.
So that was always my approach.
You mentioned already several of the players, and that'll kind of lead into this question here. You mentioned Tony Lockhart. You mentioned Josh Price, DJ Jones, Dwayne Lockhart. What are some of those players during your time here, which I know this is a hard question because you'd probably want to mention every player that you ever coached here, but is there any that really just stand out to you, just raw athleticism like a Tony Lockhart?
Well, I mean, the Lockhart brothers, incredible talents and big play potential. And then someone like Benny Pickens that, in the mid-90s, that just he would zig and zag from one side of the field to the other, and just a really good player. Nick Bradley, I think one year, he had 1,900 yards. Just an outstanding back, and so steady for 3 years at running back. Just very productive. We've had a lot of good players like that just really made a difference. And I'm not just going to say skilled players, people that you wouldn't think of. We had a run of centers that were really good. Ben McDonald and Dusty Harrell and Eric Featherston, Drake Widener. Those were all really good centers, and we had a good offensive lineman during that time that made everything work, of course.
Absolutely. What about on the coaching side? Because I know a lot of and nearly everyone we've talked to, every one of them's mentioned Coach Bill Pruitt, been here for years and years and years. What about some of those coaches that were kind of helped you along the way that need to get some recognition that they probably don't get?
Yeah, part of the deal is just the steadiness of coming in. And like I said, I was a young coach, and you had Tim Hill and Bill Pruitt that were there, knew Beebe, and they were just steadied. And they were in the junior high, and Bill stayed there the whole time at the junior high and just added stability that was just so nice to have, and just kind of kept things on track all the way through. Tony McCoy came my second year here, stayed the whole time. A lot of stability. You just don't get a better person than Tony McCoy.
Not at all.
And Larry Reeder was a great defensive coordinator, and Mike Tarkington, great defensive coordinator. We had a good coaching staff. I hope that I felt like we got along well. I think it was hopefully a good environment for kids to walk into.
Absolutely.
And play.
What about some of the memories? I think several of them had mentioned, or several that played under you in those early 90s and early 2000s, or the 90s and 2000s, excuse me. They all brought up that Marion game when y'all were down. I think it was 28-0 when we talked to Mark Bivens about that. Is there any memories other, like obviously that game, or any memories that stick out to you during your time here?
One of my memories, I'm more of a snapshot guy instead of a big details, but the first years I was here, it was a huge rivalry between Beebe and Ball Knob. And so, we went over there, and I just remember the stands not being able to hold everybody, and the people were on the track just right there on you. And it was, that's exciting just to turn around and there's fans literally 4 or 5 feet from you hollering. I remember going over to Lone Oak several times. Their stands couldn't hold everybody.
Yeah.
And so Lone Oak was pretty good. We were pretty good. And then we went over there, and it just seemed like both communities were there. Really exciting to me to feel all that excitement and support that we got really from Lone Oak and from Beebe fans, and just packed on the track. Those are great memories for me personally. And then the Marion game, that was very exciting, and down 28-0 at half, and things just weren't going our way. In second half, we knew if they scored first, it would be the mercy rule, and we scored, and then it just kind of went back and forth, and then we finally came out and won the game at the end. It's exciting stuff. But I remember more of the crowds, and well, we were playing one year. We were playing Batesville at home, and we had an opportunity if we won the game to win the conference championship, and it didn't work out. But I remember before the game, Batesville stands were packed. Our stands were packed, and before kickoff, both stands just started cheering like they were so much anticipating the game. And the official turned to me and he goes, "That's why I like to come here." And it's
awesome.
Just exciting, just good stuff.
You mentioned, and we'll wrap it up here with this, Coach. You mentioned the community always having your back, the school system, the kids. I mean, everybody. The support level was there. And during your time as the head coach here, what did it mean to you? Like overall, when you kind of look back over everything that happened here, the conference championships, all the success that you had, what did it mean to you now to be the head coach here at Beebe?
Well, it's kind of humbling. That was a great time, in my life too, at that age, and kids and all that kind of thing. So it was just a great time to be a coach. And you're right, it was such a strong community, and I felt great going into the coach's office. I felt great going into the schools. It felt like just a warm, good place to be. And a lot of excitement. And, it all comes down to, though, I'm going to circle this around back to players, being at the right place, the right time, and just being there when you have a good run of kids. And I was thinking about this when we were talking about this conversation, and I started thinking about the brothers or family members that coach. I'm going to read these off because I wrote these down.
Absolutely.
I may be wrong on these, but here we go. These are brothers that played while I was there. The Burns, the Lindsays, the Desmains, the Lockharts, 2 sets of Brown brothers, the Whites, the Widners, the Sandlins, they were cousins, the Rainies, 3 of them, the Hayeses, the Wisdoms, the Hollands, the McCoys, the McAfees, the Lambs. And I know I missed some, but I'm talking a lot of families that are there, and I bet a lot of those are still around in that community.
Absolutely right.
It's just that's what's neat. You always got people moving in and out of a community, and Beebe's growing, but there was a base there of people that is their town, that's their hometown, and they want their football team to do well.
It's cool that you mentioned all those guys. And I mean, like you said, a lot of them are still here. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that you impacted their lives so greatly. And I know you left your mark here on this community all those years ago, coaching here. And the football program was in a great place when you got here, and you left it in an even better place. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. And I did. I've got to say, there's a couple other names I want to hear. I mean, Chris Gunner.
Yep.
What a great player. I mean, I don't know if anyone's had any more yards than him that year. And Owen Bivens, R.C. Wallace, Lance McClure, Jed Davis, Charlie Reddick. I mean, just some great players that I had the opportunity to coach. And then some great leaders. When I think of leadership, I think of Tommy Edwards, their quarterback. Just solid, good kids. And it was just a pleasure to be there with those quality kids that I know, that I see on Facebook and things like that they're back into the community. They're back members of the Booster Club. They're doing things. Their kids are in school. It's just kind of a neat process in the cycle of the way things go.
That's awesome. It's really cool to sit back and just hear you talk about all this time. And I said the same thing with Coach Shannon. It was almost 20, 30 years ago, and it almost seems like when I'm talking to you, like it feels like in your head that it almost happened yesterday. Like the way that you're able to rattle off these kids' names, like time hasn't even passed. It almost seems like.
Well, it has. But you're right. But that was just. And
that just shows the impact that you had on this community and all these kids, and the same thing that they had on you.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, that's some good kids. I mean, good families and good support, and it was just a good time for me, and I hope kids had a pleasant experience when they played.
I coached high school football from 1989 until the 1998 football season. I was the defensive coordinator, and the memories that I have of it are that we had great kids. They were really dedicated to being a Badger. They had great work ethic. They had they had the backing of the parents, the backing of the community, and when they got to us from junior high, they'd had Coach Pruitt, Bill Pruitt, and Tim Hill, and Robin McClure, and Andy O'Mara, and they instilled in them a work ethic that was, they were devoted to team and to working hard, and whenever they got to us, we just kind of had to hone it a little bit. We worked them hard. They always responded. The teams we had were really good. I've told several of the kids that played for us that we'd have played against anybody in the state of Arkansas, no matter what classification, and we'd been proud of the effort, and we'd given them all that they wanted. We beat PA. I can't remember the year. I think it was 94, 95 over there. The last seconds of the game was at PA. It was we made a stop on the goal line. The fans rushed the field. I mean, it was electric for the fans. It was electric for the players. As coaches, we were drained. I mean, it was something else. It was just something that we were really proud of. And we went to the playoffs several years, and just the effort that our kids gave us. I mean, they never quit. I was really proud. I'm proud to be a Badger. I'm proud to have been a part of those 10 years coaching here at Beebe, and I still keep in contact with a couple of those guys. Sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it might be every month, and then on holidays, we'll text back and forth, or maybe get a phone call. So hopefully that as coaches and as a coach that we made an impact on.
Coach, why don't you just start off with telling me a little bit about your playing career, when you played for Beebe, and kind of just some of your accolades as a Badger quarterback.
I moved up to Beebe. I went to school to Desart till I was in 6th grade, so I played my entire post career at Beebe as a quarterback in 7th through 12th grade. Got there in 92. I think Coach Prock's first year was 93, my 8th grade year. We won the conference title my senior year, 97. I think that's the first time they won it outright in something like crazy 30 years or something. One of the biggest disappointments of my career, though, is we never won a playoff game. We were the 2 seed my 10th and 11th grade year. And people that know football, when I throw these names out there, you'll say, well, no wonder you didn't win a playoff game. We drew Boonville one year, we drew Dollarway one year, and we drew Prescott one year. So we lost 3 games at home in the playoffs and never made it to the second round. So that was the most disappointing part of my career. The best part of it was just the camaraderie of the community. When I was in school at Beebe, it was a lot smaller than it is now. Our graduating class was 110. So, all the guys that I played with, just a real close-knit group. After Friday night games, we'd go out somewhere in the country and go camping and stuff like that. So those are the best memories of not only the games and stuff, but just the relationships that you built.
You were talking about Coach Prock and kind of being here during Coach Prock's first couple of years. What were some of those coaches that really made an impact on you during your time as a Badger? And I think a lot of guys I've talked to so far, their very first thought is Coach Bill Pruitt. What are some of those other coaches? Yeah.
A funny story about Coach Pruitt. So Barry Lundy Jr. played for him in junior high right before I got there. And Coach Lundy and I stay in contact. And when he was at Arkansas traveling around recruiting, we would always tell Coach Pruitt stories. Just how good he was and what a great guy he was and all that. So Coach Bill Pruitt, Coach Mike Tarkington, Larry Reeder, Tony McCoy. I still talk to Coach McCoy. He's coaching up at Searcy. I try to get in his track meet every year. He won't let me in. So, but all those guys were great influences. And, that's the reason I knew from about 8th grade, because of those guys and the relationship that they had with me and my friends and the way I felt about them. That's why I'm a coach. I mean, that's just the camaraderie of every year, a different group of seniors that you get to be buddies with, and you see them grow and become young men. And I've got guys that I coach at Dardanelle now that have 2 and 3 kids and are in their 30s.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy how that all flew by. I'm sure those guys, Coach Tarkington, Coach Reeder, and those guys are like, yeah, imagine how we feel. So
well,
that was a very good group and super fun. Just a great group of guys to grow up around.
You mentioned the camaraderie, and this will kind of lead into our final question here. You mentioned the camaraderie, like the coaching bond that you had with some of these guys. What did it mean to you back in the 90s to play quarterback for the Badgers? What did it mean to wear Beebe across your chest to kind of turn you into the man that you were today? What did it mean to you to have Beebe across your chest?
Well, it was just such a prideful thing because, like I said, a small community back then. It was us against the world. Every Friday night when you went and played Ball Knob or you went and played Dover, Atkins, or Lone Oak, you felt obligated to try to do the very best that you could to get your teammates and your community and your coaches. You know, you didn't want to disappoint them and let them down. I still feel that way as a coach now where I'm down here at Stuttgart. It's the same way at Stuttgart as it was at Beebe as a player. Nothing's changed, just the location. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. By the way, before I let you go, Coach, I was just talking to Coach Pruitt a little bit ago. He told me to tell you hello. He mentioned just what an incredible quarterback you were here for Beebe, and I've asked Tony Lockhart this as well, and we can end it here with Coach Pruitt. His namesake is the Fieldhouse. Any person you talk to here in Beebe, they know Coach Pruitt, and they know the impact that Coach Pruitt made on so many young men playing football. What about you? What impact did Coach Pruitt have on you, whether it was as a player or now transitioning as a coach into Stuttgart? Like, what did Coach Pruitt mean to your professional career, your playing career, all of that?
Well, you know, he was the one that got it started for me. That was the first real – I never played a Pee Wee or anything, so that's who I started with. And, you know, just kind of the set my tone of do stuff right and work hard and – be at practice every day and things along those lines. You know, just all the intangibles that you want out of a good player becomes a good coach. And Coach Pruitt was one of the first ones to instill that in me.
Name is Tony Lockhart. I played the season of 94, 95, and 96. So those were the years that which was my sophomore, junior, and senior year. The fondest memories is obviously just spending time with your teammates, building a bond, creating a family, you know, creating a culture. Those are the things that I remember the most when it comes to Badger sports. The coaches, the time they put into you. You don't realize it until it's over, but not just the time, but the love they put into you. Yeah. The fact that they care about you. I mean, they're almost like other parents, because if in reality, you spend just as much time with them as you do your actual, you know, your parents, your guardians. So those are some of the fondest memories.
Yeah. Who are some of your coaches that you mentioned, like spending time, like obviously being in athletics, you spend more time with your coaches than anyone. Like, who are some of those coaches that really made an impact on you?
Obviously you start with, you know, Coach Pruitt, Coach Hill, Coach O'Mara. Then you also have Coach McCoy, Coach Prock, Coach Tarkington, Coach Reeder, Coach Bradley. So those
the list could go on and on.
Yes. I mean, you start from junior high to high school.
Specifically, right before we had this conversation, I was just talking with Coach Bill Pruitt. What did Coach Pruitt mean? Obviously, he didn't coach into senior high. Obviously, I'm sure he helped you out when you got into senior high ball anyway. But what does Coach Pruitt mean to Badger football?
I mean, Coach Pruitt is pretty much like the foundation of Badger football. I mean, even starting off with the junior high, they set the tone. You know, they set the foundation. They create the fundamentals. You know, a biggest part of the culture is Coach Pruitt, Coach Hill, in the junior high level.
What did it mean to you to wear Beebe across your chest? What did it mean to you to be a Badger for this community?
For me, I have been a Badger, I have been a Razorback, and I have been a UCA Bear. And overall, Badger's everything. The reason for that is because when you play at the junior high school level, you play for the love of the game. You know, it's not, when you play on the higher level, it's almost like a job. High school, NFL, it's a job. But when you're in high school, junior high, you play for the love of the game. You play for your friends. You play for the town. It's a representative. It means a lot.
I pretty much my whole life, once a Badger, always a Badger. So from 7th grade onward, I started at the baseball fields and Pee Wee football out there in Beebe, 3rd and 4th grade. 7th grade is, when you start playing with the school team. So I started out then, most of my beginning of my career was on defensive side and everything wasn't really until high school that I got into the running back position. We had a coaching change while I was there. I started out with Coach Prock when I was in 10th grade, where we were running a spread offense, and I was doing a little defense and then a little running back out of the shotgun position. And we had Coach Shannon come on my junior and senior year, and we had a lot of success running probably the most boring offense of all time, the dead tee. But, I found my home, and I'm not a real tall guy, so that fullback position in that offense worked out really well for me. you know, I've got a lot of fond memories from, you know, my 7th grade team. We were undefeated. You know, junior high team, we won our division that year. But, you know, I'll never forget, you know, Friday nights at Bro Irwin. Good times. The coaches that were out there, you know, a couple guys that stand out to me were Coach Pruitt, who's our junior high football coach. Yeah, a lot of good memories from that guy. A lot of good halftime speeches from him.
I can imagine.
Yeah, he'd fire him off. We used to refer to him as a chainsaw. You know, he'd be down here, but all of a sudden he's up here. And down, you know. Let's see. Coach Wooten was kind of an assistant coach. I believe the field's named after him now.
Yep.
He was there through my high school career, and he always had a lot of good life advice. That's for sure. But
what did you brought up Coach Pruitt and Coach Wooten, and a lot of everyone that I've talked to really has brought those two guys specifically up. And obviously, like, I know you're mentored by Coach Shannon and Coach Prock, but specifically those two, like Coach Pruitt and Coach Wooten, what do they mean, obviously, to you as a former football player coming from Beebe, but just to the football program as a whole?
I'd say it's kind of a continuity and a familiar face and a comforting face almost. You know, they may not have been the X and O's guy, but they were always there. You know, a pat on the back. It's just something good, you know, I think for the locker room in general.
Yeah.
You know, especially high school sports, you know, a lot of guys are not going to go on to play football on after that. But those guys are there. Those coaches help teaching a lot of life lessons, being there when guys need it. And that's really what I think stands out to me, just being around those coaches. A couple of big memories. One is kind of a team memory. This was junior high football. We went to Marion, Arkansas. You know, we got on the bus. We drove that long drive out there, and, man, we put a hurting on those guys, and that felt really good. It was a pretty early conference game, and, you know, we had something to prove out there, and, you know, we went and did it. And that stands out to me, just, you know, the camaraderie with the guys and everything. As far as personal memories, this would be my senior year. This first round of the playoffs, we got Blytheville. They're a big athletic team. And, you know, I personally had a really good game. I had two of the longest runs of my career in that game. And, you know, just winning a playoff game at Bro Irwin, really, that was awesome.
What did it mean to you wearing Beebe across your chest? What did it mean to represent this tight-knit community, especially back then? And like, just what kind of responsibility? What did it mean to you to wear Beebe?
It really meant a lot to me. You know, all of my brothers and sisters, they went to Beebe. My mom, you know, she's still working there at the cafeteria. My brothers played football, so I kind of shadowed myself after them. I wore the same number as my brother Tommy, who played in between 02 and 03. And so it meant a lot to me. It was very influential in my life, and, you know, it's something I'll always remember.